This video has been going around social media, and maybe you've seen it and maybe you haven't. And as you can see, it's very graphic, it's incredibly horrible, and it raises certain questions that I wanted to look at. As you can clearly see, these are Africans doing extreme damage to other Africans. And these are African men doing this to other African men. Now, this video captures the absolute tragedy that is going on in Africa. Not only the violence that you saw, but the mind. I want to focus on the mind of all the people involved in this horrific incident. Now, let's talk about the victims. As you saw in that video, the victims are all men, from the looks of it, are just seated there, literally waiting to be killed in the most gruesome manner. You don't see any resistance. You see nothing but compliance. Compliance unto death. You don't see them fighting back. You don't see them trying to retaliate. You see a group of broken men, completely broken, who are physically strong but mentally weak. And this is generally how African men are, surprisingly. You know, you look at most African men, they're really, really strong physically. But for some reason, they're never able to resist. They're never able to fight off their enemies. In fact, they get confused as to who is their enemy and who is their friend. And you see this behavior also in Kenya. For example, you could be inside a bus that has 72 people. And the bus has a driver and a conductor, one conductor. And the bus is being driven in a very crazy way. The driver is overspeeding, he's swerving, he's overtaking recklessly. He's taking bends at a very high speed. And all these 72 people, passengers who are seated in the back, in the case of Kenya, you will not see them resisting or even raising their voice to tell the driver to slow down. And you will not see them also telling the driver, stop, I want to get off. They will not resist, they will remain completely passive, and they will be sent straight to their deaths with no resistance. And there's 72 of them, and there's only one driver and one conductor. That 72 grown men can be driven off a cliff by a drugged up driver with no resistance. They say nothing unto the death. Now, this is the psychology that I'm really interested in. Again, I'm always interested in the mind more than anything else, to understand why would 72 people say nothing as they're being driven to their deaths. No resistance. None raises their voice, nothing. And there's 72 of them, and the driver is one, and they can easily overcome that driver. What is it about African men, and Kenyan men in particular, that makes them this passive, this weak, unable to act even in the face of extreme danger? Just like you saw this group, no resistance. They didn't even try to run away. You're better off trying to run away and get shot. How do you cooperate with your murderer and you're a grown man? And there's several of you. You can still fight for it and die like men. So this shows that most men in Africa, and Kenya in particular, lack that dignity. You know, that dignity that makes you into a man. You know, that spine, that iron steel will that makes you into a man. They don't have it. In fact, my own experience with Kenyan men is that they're very effeminate. Anytime you try to have a purely logical conversation with a Kenyan man, his response is always effeminate. He always brings about issues of feelings or how he feels. And you're talking about something that is coldly logical. They're not able to get to that point. And this lack of dignity, where does it come from? This comes from slave training, because the cultures of Africa, the post-colonial cultures of most African countries, are slave cultures. And like we always say, the slave always seeks to honor his master. All empathy, sympathy, love, adoration, loyalty is given to the master. And so the slave never has dignity. So he takes the effeminate role, and the foreigner takes the masculine role. So let's see how this thing plays out in real life. So in real life, you'll find an African man giving himself and his own son the name of his foreign enemy. For example, you go to Kenya, you'll find people who are called Leopold. Now, Leopold was a king of Belgium who invaded Central Africa and killed an estimated 10 to 15 million people. The major language of Congo was Kikongo, but he killed so many people that a very tiny language called Lingala became the major language, given the number of people he murdered. Now, an African man will name himself and his son in honor of that mass murderer, of his own people. What is the psychology of that? For you to give honor to your worst enemy. You'll find many Africans going by the kings of England, going by those names, and the queens of England. And these are our worst enemies. These are the people who dragged millions of us into slavery and killed untold millions. But you'll find so many Africans having British names and feeling proud about it. So what is the psychology of that? Would you go to Russia and find a grown Russian man giving his son the name of Hitler? Do you think you can find that? No, they know who their enemy is. They would never honor their enemy that way. But not in Kenya. The Kenyan man will always honor his enemy because he worships his enemy. He thinks his enemy is God. And so in Kenya, you'll find people called Edward. Find people called Victoria. All these people said we are monkeys. Right? You go to the University of Nairobi, you will find a statue of Gandhi. Gandhi said Africans are the most disgusting, vilest things. And in fact, he left South Africa because he did not want to sit on the bus on the side designated to Africans. And he was a member of the British Army in South Africa that was attacking Africans. But in University of Nairobi, he has a statue in his honor. Think how pathetic that is. But so this is the mind of the Kenyan man. Very docile, very effeminate, not apparently confused, not knowing who his enemy is and who his friend is. And this passivity, this docility is what you saw in that video. So that if such people were to attack Kenya, you would expect the same response from Kenyan men. And this happened. You remember there was a university that was attacked, I think in Garissa. And they were able to behead, was it like 50 people? And all the 50 people stood up and lined up with no resistance to get beheaded. They didn't even fight for it. Are you seeing my point? They didn't die heroic deaths that you're fighting for it. They lined up and they were slaughtered one after the other, showing zero resistance. See, this is the mind of the slave. And this is the danger of being a slave, because you don't have the necessary aggression that you need to have to fight your enemy. Why? Because you worship your enemy. You've been trained from the time you're a baby that your enemy is also your God. And that you must always show deference to your enemy. You must always bow down. This is the slave culture. This is why so many Kenyan men are completely passive. Even in the face of death, they will not lift up their little finger to save their life. Now let us talk about the psychology of the killers. The people who are doing the killing in that video. They were all Africans, as you clearly saw. Now, what is motivating them to do this? Why are they doing this to their fellow Africans? Again, this is the other side of the slave culture. So in the slave culture that most Kenyans practice, all loyalty, like I said before, all love, all empathy, sympathy must be shown to the slave master. Why? Because the slave master is also God. You understand? So that when you go into a place of religious worship, the statue that you're worshiping is the statue of the slave master. It is the statue of the colonizer. Because the colonizer also doubles up as being deity. They are your gods, right? And now, in this other case, these Africans are presumably, according to reports, Muslim. And it is the exact same situation with them. Because when they walk into a place of worship, whatever they are worshiping is Arab. The deity that they are calling God is an Arab deity. It's not an African deity. And so for the African who's also a Muslim, he honors the Arab above everything else. The Arab becomes deity because he believes that, like the Arab said, that the God of the Muslims only understands Arabic and can only be spoken to in Arabic. And that the Arab, the Arab city in Arabia is a holy city. Just think. Arabs being holy. And so the African man who's a Muslim is worshipping the Arab, is taking his instructions from the Arab. So these Africans who you see killing other Africans are under instructions from the Arab. That for you to enter into our heaven, our Arab, for you to enter into our heaven, our Arab heaven, because you know in that heaven it is the Arab who's in control, right? So for you to enter into this heaven, you have to go and kill your African brothers. He will never be given instructions by the Arabs to go and kill Arabs. No. The African Muslim, whether in Somalia, Kenya, Mozambique, I don't care where, or Nigeria, or Mauritania, it makes no difference. He is under the control of the Arab, and the instructions are very simple. Kill your fellow Africans in order for us to allow you to enter into our heaven. And these Africans actually believe that. And so they go on a rampage, killing their fellow Africans. You will never see them attacking the Arab. This is despite the fact that it is the Arabs who enslaved the Africans for hundreds of years. But the Africans who are Muslim don't perceive the Arab as their enemy. And they will die for the Arab. They will kill for the Arab. Do you see how perverse this is? And so what is it about Africans that makes them so gullible? Then someone can show up on a camel and convince you that he's in charge of heaven. And that only by killing your own will you access that heaven. And the African man will never question that. Never. He will die for the Arab. For example, I don't know, something happened to the Palestinians. And so many Muslims, also in Kenya, went to protest about something that had happened to the Palestinians. But in your life, you will never see Arabs protesting when something happens to Africans. So you see, in this slave culture, all love, all adoration, all loyalty, all sympathy and empathy must be given only to the slave master, who also is God, right? And so on the reverse side of it, all hatred, aggression, violence must be displayed towards yourself. And so these people who are seeing these criminals that are committing this atrocity, they're showing every aggression towards Africans. But they would never show that same aggression towards the Arab. This is despite the fact that Arabs were selling some Somalis and some other Africans in Libya in 2014. But they will never show aggression towards the Arab, because the Arab is their God, right? And so this is the tragedy of slave cultures that totally control Africa today. The African man is controlled like a little boy, like a baby. He's told, do this, he does it. Do this, he does it. Kill yourself, he does it. How do you explain that? And so you can see the tragic consequences. That these Africans, both of them, are playing the slave role. of being victimizer and being victim under foreign orders. So these Africans are not doing this thing on their own initiative. They are under instructions from who? From the Arab. Go kill your fellow Africans. And they immediately obey. And you can see the tragedy that has overcome Somalia. Endless war. Why are they fighting? Because that's what the Arabs said, that if you kill your own, we will allow you into our heaven. And so you have religious groups that form armies that are slaughtering people in Somalia. No peace from 1992. What are they quarreling about? They're the same people, the same tribe. What is the fight? The fight is very simple. The Arab said, for me to enter heaven, I have to kill you. So that's why I'm killing you. So that I can enter the Arab man's heaven. Think how ridiculous that is. But this is reality in Africa. This is reality in Kenya. So after 60 years of flag independence, after majority of people being presumably educated, we know it's miseducation, but presumably they're educated so they can read a wide variety of books. Right? How is it that majority of the Kenyan population is still under the psychological control of the foreigner? So for how long will this situation persist, whereby you honor the foreigner above yourselves? So it is this same psychology that you're seeing in this horrific incident. It is the same thinking that caused the government of Kenya to hand over a gold mine having 8.7 million tons of gold ore to the Mzungu. Same mind. The same mind that is causing these African men to kill these other African men is the same mind that caused them to give the same Mzungu all that gold and to be smiling about it. So basically, my message is very simple. All these foreign gods must be brought down. Every statue of a Mzungu, every painting of a Mzungu that you're being told to fall down on your knee and worship as God has to come down. This has to end. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Kenya's time has come. Our time has come. Your time has come. A time to succeed and not fail. A time to grow wealth and not poverty. A time to go up and not down. It's time for you to stop walking and drive your car. Stop renting and buy yourself a house. It's your time to get blessed. Join the CCV movement and together let us keep poverty and unemployment out of Kenya. Become a member today. Donate what you can. And remember that the CCV is the only political organization in Kenya that is squarely built upon Christian values, unlike the rest. We'll see you next time. Thank you.